1000 recruiters. What is an instant well? This person isn't getting the job thing a candidate can do during a job interview for you? I was interviewing clerks for a gas station. One was a relative of a friend of my supervisor. He was clean and showed up on time. He also answered every question with back when I was selling crack cocaine. My supervisor said I had to hire him, so I did. It went as well as you might imagine. Sales experience. A. Fantastic. A woman casually mentioning that she wanted to set her ex on fire. Totally unprompted and unrelated to anything that had been asked. Later, when asked how to handle difficult customers, she said she would set them on fire as well. I'm sorry, I will need some context on that. What was the position she was applying to? Undefined. Retail. In a video game shop. This was a group interview, and she was there at the recommendation of someone who already worked in the shop. That person was also there helping with the interviews, and kept trying to drop hints to stop talking about setting people on fire, but she just kept going. Had a guy literally sprint out of the building. I wasn't the interviewer. I'm a web developer. But as we were trying to hire a second developer, I was asked to prepare some basic web development questions. These were not hard. These were absolute bare basics, baby's first code stuff. This guy came in, started interviewing, and was apparently doing okay. Not fantastic, but enough to keep him in consideration. Then he saw that we had a test and he apparently grabbed his bag and ran out of the room. All I saw was this guy sprint full tilt past the rest of the office, shoulder barge out the door and run off into the distance, followed by our two directors stumbling out of the interview office laughing uncontrollably. I guess he lied on his CV. What were the questions? It was seriously like using HTML and CSS, make a rectangle in the middle of the web page and give it a shadow, kind of basic. A guy turned up where I worked asking for an interview and started giving the receptionist grief because the interviewer was running late. It clearly wasn't her fault, and it was entirely unacceptable. The interviewers didn't even bother, just invited him to leave. Q. On a scale of 1 to 10, how are your C language skills? A. 10. Q. What does I do? A. I don't know. The answer to that question is never 10, lol. 9. This guy's good. 10. This guy's a friggin' liar. My biggest takeaway from reading this thread is that some absolute morons are getting interviews pretty easily, and I'm struggling to get to the interview stage for any job. If it helps, they probably get the interview because they lied on their resume. I'm looking to fill a position right now and all I have to go by is resumes. Undefined. My dad is a QC/CAM manager with an asphalt company. They build roads and stuff like that. And he said that once a guy with really good qualifications came in for an interview as a lab tech and said, you can go ahead and fire all your other techs because I'm the only one you're gonna need. The interview lasted 5 seconds before my dad told him to peep off. Oh man, that is wonderful. I can just picture this dude sauntering into the interview and delivering that line with utter confidence. Only for the confidence to instantly melt away when told to peep off. People like this need putting in their place way more often. Props to your dad for looking out for his team. I was interviewing someone who had previously worked at the American embassy in his home country. The language barrier was very difficult, and he was having a tough time with the interview. Partway through, he showed me some certificates he received from the embassy job as awards for good work. The conversation then went like this. Me. Can you tell me the story about some of these awards? Him. Huh. Me. I'd like to know why you received these awards. Maybe you can pick one of them and tell me the story about how you got it. Him. Me. Yes. These things you're showing me right now. Tell me about them. Him. They are awards. Me. Right. Tell me how you received them. Him. How? Me. Yes. What did you do to get them? Him. I dunno. It's your embassy. You tell me. That last bit was the longest sentence he spoke to me during the entire interview. These are my awards, mother. From Army. For a while, I did secondary interviews to help out in new store. They'd do the recruiting for candidates and pass on to me the ones they liked best. I'd get some okay results, but one supervisor had no idea how to shut down a candidate that wasn't suitable. I coached her over and over, but she had too soft of a heart. I miss when I had one. Pre-retail. This meant I got all kinds of characters. The worst. A candidate who laughed at me. He didn't have an answer for my first 2 questions, then just laughed at my third and shook his head. I shut down the interview and made it clear it was due to an inability to complete it. I politely asked if he had any questions, and he said, "Is the job paid by direct deposit or a check? Do you need a void check from me?" "No sir, you're never getting a paycheck from us. Ever." I was once around when my old boss interviewed a potential bouncer candidate. This guy lived about 45-minute drive away from the location, had no license to drive nor a car. And no, there were no buses or other method of transportation available around the time the club closed. When asked if he had a friend or some other accommodation figured out, he simply told that he's going to pick up some girl every work night and spend the night at her place. Because hey, isn't there always a line of chicks just waiting to bang the bouncer, right? Never saw him again. Been doing a bunch of interviews lately for an intermediate network engineer. I had a guy start off an interview with, "I don't really know anything about networking." The POE. If someone said it was next to the SFP, would that be on her thigh? Had a guy who was a little rough, but was looking quite promising for a design role. He blew it with me by saying, "I'll turn this company around in 6 weeks," and a few more comments along those lines with a theme of, "You are currently messing it up. This is a small successful company." I wanted him to fit in, not turn us round. And most of these amazing ideas are, "Why don't you just?" followed by something that doesn't work and is obvious to someone who really knows the company. I call it the third year syndrome. Knows just enough to do their job with someone hand feeding them tasks, but thinks they figured out the entire industry. Friend of a friend, call him Bob for short, got a job despite not being the best qualified candidate. Down to the final 2 for a teaching job. There was Bob, who was a solid, unremarkable candidate. Clearly good enough for the role but nothing special about a candidate. And then there was Charlie. Charlie was an absolute rockstar teacher. Won awards. Young, dynamic and driven. Outstanding teaching demo. Just the nicest guy who had glowing references. Then they asked any questions, and he replied, "Could you tell me if you'd have a problem with a teacher dating a student?" Yes, they would. Bob got the job. Edit. Since lots of people have asked, this was a secondary school with 6th form in the UK, so age 11 to 18. Considering you're a dog trainer, Charlie. Yes, we would. This is not a cat house. When I worked in a bank as a manager, one internal candidate I interviewed put her finger in front of my face while I was talking and said, "I'm gonna stop you right there." I went with the other person who didn't put their finger to my face. Did she trace her finger over your lips? Like them erotic podcast stories? Did she pick your nose for you? Great on paper. Came to the interview high. Admitted he'd failed a workplace drug screen for PCP. And wanted to drive heavy machinery.